Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Late Night Yap. Today, we're going to be reading about toxic relationships or relationships in general, marriage, all that kind of good stuff, any of those types of stories. And we also have a story that was written by one of our very own yappers, and this story comes specifically from our subreddit r/late night yap. And if you want to submit your own story, I always put our subreddit down in the link description below. I also hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our first story. This takes place back when I was in high school. It was my junior year, and it was the start of a new semester, and I did the usual stuff, going to all the new classes and whatnot. It's the end of the day, and I get into this new history class, and I meet this girl with pink hair. Of course she has pink hair, but it's not me, guys. And at the time, she had a boyfriend. Anyways, I don't know the girl or anything about her, and at the time, I wasn't thinking I wanted to be with this girl or anything. So continuing that class, the teacher had us do a few things, all as a class, but when the class was almost over, I actually complimented the girl's hair because I like pink hair, dope, lol, and she said thank you. The next part, I'm gonna jump around a bit and just tell you the important stuff. In the class, we happened to sit right across from each other, and over the next few months, we actually became like really great friends, her boyfriend included at the time. I had her number, but as I said, I didn't really think anything of it, just that we were friends, which we were pretty much only classroom friends because I never texted her and we never hung out, but when we did, we had class together and it was legit so much fun. We would goof off all the time, so it was like that from January to June and probably a few weeks before the school year ended. She was saying that she was going to break up with her boyfriend just because it wasn't working out. They were together for a lot of years, so I won't go into it, but I could definitely see why she would want to break up with him, as he was very clingy and controlling. So the school year ends, and I spent like the first week just doing whatever. Really, I never hung out with friends or anything, but something felt off, like I was missing something in my day-to-day life, so I just ended up texting her. Do you want to hang out? Because over those few months, she truly became like my best friend. She hadn't broke up with her boyfriend yet, so he asked to come because obviously I'm a guy, and I guess it's in his mind, just hanging out meant that we were doing something horrible. But we ended up going to Dairy Queen and to like a waterfall that's in our area, and her boyfriend ended up having to go home, but me and her still hung out for a while. And I mentioned that I needed a job, so the same day she mentions to her boss that I need a job, and I get hired the same day. So within a few days, I'm actually working with her, and at the time, I don't know how to drive, so every single day she would pick me up from work, and we would spend the whole day together working, and then she would drop me off, and like a month later, by this time, she had broken up with her boyfriend, and maybe, as you were guessing, me and her spending so much time together, like pretty much the only time we didn't see each other was when we were sleeping. Other than that, we saw each other 24/7, and it was amazing. I had so much fun. To continue the night, we were closing the restaurant as usual, and at this point, me and her are pretty close. So later that night, we were driving home, and this is embarrassing to say because I couldn't have been more oblivious if I tried. So we're talking about relationship. I don't remember how the conversation started just because it's been so long, but we're talking about each other's types of partners. And so she starts saying tall, blue eyes, dark hair, and this is what I say. Oh, those are good traits. I'm sure there's a guy out there for you. I'll help you look. Just in case you were wondering, she described me, and it flew right over my head. So anyways, we get to my house, she drops me off and leaves, and I'm in my house just thinking, and then my brain finally turns on, and I was like, oh my gosh, she was talking about me. So I immediately text her and say, were you talking about me? I'm so sorry that I was so oblivious, stuff like that. She confirmed that she was talking about me and that she did have a crush on me and that she would want to date me, and so we started flirting, hanging out more, and just pretty much dating. At the time, we just didn't really put a label on it because she wanted to wait a bit because she was afraid of being called a hooer from her mom since she was out of a long-term relationship like a month and a half prior. So, as I said, we were hanging outside of work, we were FaceTiming 24/7, and then we started talking about spicy related stuff, and now we wanted to do it. Long story short, like a month after she told me she had a crush on me, we did the devil's tango and ended up having a pregnancy scare. But on the off chance that she was, we planned to stick together and do our best since it would be our fault for getting pregnant. So at this point, I'm skipping around just because the stories are going to be very long. Me and her end up getting into a fight. This doesn't have to do with the pregnancy thing. We just ended up getting into a pretty bad fight. It was a boundary thing that I didn't know since we never really discussed boundaries. Pretty much I had this friend that was female, and I said I love you too because we were friends, and I didn't mean it like in a girlfriend type of way. It was like a friend type of way, but she didn't see it that way. I was trying to make it up to her, and my other friend ended up finding out and trying to get involved, even though I told them not to, and created bad blood between my friend and my girlfriend. And since I previously told my friend not to get involved, I was taking my girlfriend's side, and because of them, because I made them a promise that she wouldn't get involved, but she did anyway. So a few days ago, me and my girlfriend patched things up. Life is going good by this point. It's August, and we decided to finally put a label on it and tell everybody that we were dating. And we were posting things on Instagram, and my friend was still mad and commenting on our stuff like, didn't know you would like to kiss trash, and just mean things that weren't necessary. Dang, your friend is like going hard on this girl. It sounds like a little bit more happened than just that brief description. I mean, obviously, but like, she really does not like her. So me and my girlfriend go about life as normal pretty much, and this wasn't in my story previously, but when we first had the pregnancy scare, I ended up telling my guy friend, who was actually dating my friend, so he ended up telling her because he thought that would fix a relationship somehow. I'm sorry I forgot to add that my girlfriend ended up not being pregnant. Anyways, over that weekend, my friend calls me and tries to give me an ultimatum and stuff and tells me that I shouldn't be dating her and mean things that really hurt my heart, so I didn't really want to talk to my best friend. I told her that I needed time before me and her can start being like friendly again, and she just kept pushing, so I told her that I didn't want to be friends with her, and then I hung up. Little did I know, the pain to come the next day. Everything's normal for the whole day. Me and my girlfriend are FaceTiming, playing video games, real wholesome stuff, and I haven't mentioned to my parents until this point, but they're very strict, and at the time, me and them didn't really have a trusting relationship just because they were so strict, and it was never a safe space to tell them anything because I was just always grounded all the time. So I happened to be downstairs, and at the moment I see my parents ramp up the driveway, and at that point I just knew something was off. And I know it sounds stupid, but I had like spider sense knowing that something was wrong. And if you've ever grown up in like an abusive household, I know exactly what you're talking about. You learn like the footsteps, just you know when the energy is off in an abusive house. So my stepdad comes in the house and he tells me, your life is over, we know everything. And I was very confused. I didn't know what he was going on about, and he tells me to bring all of my stuff to him, like my phone and other stuff. So I had to go upstairs and tell my girlfriend that I didn't know when I was going to talk to her again, and that I didn't know what was happening, and that I'm really sorry, but I love her. I go downstairs and bring my parents my stuff, and they proceed to yell at me and tell me that the best friend had told them everything and that I was trying to have a kid, which wasn't true, was just a pregnancy scare. But my best friend tried to paint my girlfriend in the worst light possible. They didn't even care to hear my side, just took everything my friend said at face value. Anyways, I'm skipping around a little bit, and pretty much at the end of the conversation, I was grounded for a whole year until I turned 18. So I had no way to contact my girlfriend or anything, and it's a month before school starts again in my senior year. That night, I ended up sneaking out of the house, walking a very long distance just to tell my girlfriend what was going on, and ended up telling each other that we were going to stick through this year and work it out somehow. Anyways, I end up sneaking back into the house. A whole month goes by, and I go without talking to her. School finally starts up, and it's going all right since the only time I really hang out with her is lunchtime, and we can't have a conversation otherwise since I don't have any way to talk to her or keep up with her for the past few months. But she ended up being bullied by her ex-boyfriend, and it was too much for her, so she ended up switching to online school, so that means I wouldn't have any way to contact with her at this time. I was heartbroken, so she ends up leaving the school, and we kind of break it off because we don't have any contact, but since I'm determined and I really love her, and I really loved her through the school computer, I ended up being able to talk to her through a Google Doc so we could have conversations, and she would pick up her brother. I would sneak out to go see her for a little bit, and that lasted for a while, but it got too difficult on her because she loved me, and it hurt her knowing that she couldn't talk to me other than school. So at that point, she truly broke up with me. And at that point was like November, so I didn't really move on because in my mind and my heart, I wasn't ready to give up on us. So even though that she would never respond, I would always have Google Docs open on the computer, and I would always say good morning and that I missed her and that I hoped that she was doing good. A few months go by, and she randomly ended up texting me on the dock, and she said that some guy asked her to prom as like a friend thing. And as you know, I'm grounded and everything, so I really didn't know about this, but it ended up convincing me and my parents to telling me to go to prom since they would have missed my only chance to go to prom. So I ended up going in that February, and of course she's with this guy. And when me and her see each other, it's like no time passed at all. Her and I start flirting again and whatnot. That day was good. She ended up leaving the guy because they bought a hotel room with a bunch of friends and whatnot through this coming weeks. And she reminds me that me and her would start talking more on the dock, and she threw the idea of secretly getting me a phone and ended up actually getting me a phone so that we could talk more and whatnot. At this point, it's June. And I didn't say this yet, but she ended up dating that guy that she went to prom with, but she didn't want to give up on us. And a few weeks before I turned 18, she did give up, and it broke my heart because I did so many things that are just here for her and try to make it work with the bad hand that we were dealt. She ended up choosing that guy because she was guilt tripped into doing it. I can't really give you the context without making the story even longer, but she ended up choosing him, and she started being really mean to me, like she wasn't the girl I fell in love with when she chose him. I finally came to terms with that, so I tried to move on. Half a year passes and she ends up getting a hold of me again, which she really had to try to get a hold of me because we blocked each other on everything, and I was skeptical because I didn't want to get hurt again, but she ended up apologizing for everything she ever did, and she was sorry for the way that she treated me, and it was genuine, very nice, sweet apology. She was still friends with the guy, but me and her ended up being friends, and it was like that until February, when her boyfriend started to be controlling and make her block me, and then another few months to pass, we ended up talking again. Just to say, it was very difficult. I had to do some weird stuff to talk to her, like through TikTok bios and other Google Docs. Anyways, the story is going to sound weird without context, but the story is already very long. We ended up flirting a lot more, and then we were going to date again. But one random night, I'm building Legos, and she texts me in a panic that her and some friends were just messing around with pregnancy tests, and she was pregnant with the guy's baby, which I haven't told you about the guy. She was literally about to break up with him that week, but because, just like her last boyfriend, he was very controlling and he was also cheating on her, but at the worst time that she was pregnant with his kid. So I didn't hear from her for like 2 months, but when I heard from her again, I knew me and her could only work as friends because she was about to have a baby with a guy, and I didn't want to cause any problems between them since they were kind of patched things up, so I was just kind of like the sidelines every once in a while asking for pregnancy pictures, and was just really happy for her because she finally was at a good place in her relationship. She still wanted to be with me just because I was everything to her, just like she was everything to me. But at this point, I wasn't really flirting with her or anything, so I told her that I was talking to a nice girl and that I'll always love her, but I still want to be in her life, but it can't work between me and her anymore. There was no other girl, but I knew in my heart that we needed to move on from each other because she pretty much had a whole different life now, and I wasn't going to jeopardize it for just little old me. So we pretty much didn't talk a lot after that just because I definitely hurt her, but we could still talk occasionally, and 9 months flew by. She had her baby, and it was a beautiful baby boy. Her baby, over the next 6 months, we would talk occasionally. She would send me tons of pictures of her baby, and it truly felt like we were great friends. But then one day I woke up and she had blocked me and not even said goodbye, which I kind of understand just because this whole story takes place over a few years. But I didn't know if it was her boyfriend that made her block me, or she just did it because I reminded her of the love we had, and now we really don't have anything. Anyways, all of this story, I still think of her occasionally, and I genuinely hope that she's doing great in life. I'm so sorry that this was long. I hope if you find it interesting, then if you have any questions, feel free to ask, of course. So that was OP's story about his ex. And we also talked about it a little bit off the podcast. So pretty much he was just kind of like, looking for that advice. And I basically told him, like, I know that you really love this girl. And I feel like a lot of this was like super trauma bonded, especially being at such a young, vulnerable age and in high school. And I think too, like, obviously when you're in love with somebody, it's really hard to fall out of love with that person, especially when it's somebody that you saw being like the person that would be your whole life. But I just basically was, letting him know, like, she does have a baby with somebody else, at this point, and I think it is time to move on and like get into a situation where you either find new friends and you get out and you meet more people. That way, you can kind of move on from the situation and not be so attached to this one person. And also work on yourself. Like, you have to love yourself at the end of the day. Like, being in an abusive household can be really mentally hard on somebody. So when you get attached to someone like that, you really put all of your happiness and love into that person instead of putting it into yourself. And then you get so attached to them and you think, I can't be happy without them. But really you can. You just have to learn to, love yourself and not be so attached to everyone around you. But I will say that during this conversation with OP, a few days after that, they actually did end up going on a date with another girl, and it went really well. They built Legos together, and they just had a really great time. So I think, if we hear more about that situation, we'll definitely do a part 2 on that. And I just, I hope OP the best. And I hope that, at the end of the day, regardless of what happened, like, it's really hard to get over somebody that you really truly care about, but you sometimes just have to move on. And even without explanation or, you know, closure, sometimes that's just, the way it is. And I know that we all want closure, but the blocking and not talking to you, honestly, a lot of like silence is your answer, and that can be your closure. But we're going to go ahead and read our second story. My son said my husband hits him. My 8-year-old son told me today, unprompted, that my husband hits him. I asked when this happened and where on his body that it happened. He came over to me with an open hand, kind of slapped me in the back of the head like a little flip, and said, I didn't do it as hard as Dad does. And he also said his dad will flick him in the forehead. He said this happens when he's not listening. He said it hasn't happened this week at all, and most of the recent times was 2 years ago. But I'm curious as to why he's bringing it up now. My husband and I don't have the best communication, but we are never physically abusive to each other in front of the kids or not. It has never happened. My son said that he doesn't feel safe around his dad and only feels safe around me. He asked if we would break up now that he's told me this. He said it's okay if we did because he could just live with me and not see his dad because his dad is mean. He also asked me to please not tell his dad that he shared this with me. My other son is 9 and he said that his dad is scary but has never said that he hits him. I truly don't know what to do with this information. I'm feeling a million different emotions. I want my son to keep confiding in me and trust me. I don't want to outright come down on my husband accusing him of this, but I don't really know what to do. Now, the first comment says, most telling part of this is that your son is saying if you broke up it would be okay with him. That's depressing. Your son is scared of your husband. And OP did reply and said, I'm learning that more as the night goes on. He just keeps telling me he doesn't feel safe with him and he's scared of him. This is all very new, so I'm trying my best to take it all in. And another comment said something more is probably going on than what he's currently disclosing. Emotional abuse or something. It's not normal for 2 boys to be scared of their father. However, if you proceed, be sure to take them to a child therapist. Have you ever tried talking to both of the boys together? And personally, at this point, because other people are saying too, make an appointment with a therapist, I think definitely 100% that is probably the best option to go with. Like, just tell your husband that the boys are getting bullied in school, and tell him that you're going to go to the therapy with them to kind of figure out how to work through those emotions and like figure out the situation there, because that way he won't be suspicious that it's, 1, about him, and 2, you can work through those emotions with your boys with a licensed therapist, so that way all 3 of you guys can figure out what the next steps are. If your husband is secretly being abusive to them when you're not around, that is not okay. And honestly, it's only a matter of time before something more, even if something more serious is going on that they're not specifically disclosing, they'll feel more comfortable to confide in a therapist. And if something illegal is going on, the therapist will be able to walk you through those steps so that you don't have to go through it alone. And they will also help you get to a safe haven, a place you can go where he can't find you, those kinds of things. I'm not saying that that's going to happen right away, because that's like jumping to like crazy. But I definitely think it's worth looking into, because kids don't usually just say, oh, I'm scared of this parent for no reason, or just because they want to spite them. They're confiding in you because they trust you to listen to them. They want somebody to hear them, even if it happened 2 years ago. Obviously, he's starting it back up again, and they're terrified. So it's definitely worth looking into. And hopefully, if we do get an update on this, that it's a good update and not something completely terrifying. But moving on to our next story. Wife's infidelity. I don't think I'm in love any longer. I haven't been a perfect husband. I've been loving, affectionate, caring, and a good provider. But I also haven't validated her feelings, emotion, and have been very defensive of criticism. Long story short, lots of stress in the beginning of our marriage caused by me and poor business decisions. She reacted harshly, as she should have, but so much so that she was unable to care for our kids and was being very destructive. I filed for divorce, but we reconciled. 2 years later, she attempted to sleep with one of my best friends. Fortunately, he turned her down and told me. Fast forward 4 years, she did it again with another friend. He turned her down and informed me as well. Then 3 years later, she had a brief affair with a friend from college. She quickly ended it as he was abusive. She had unprotected intimacy with him multiple times and says that she never enjoyed it, just for the thrill. 14 years after the affair, I confronted her about him. I always had my suspicions. She bravely admitted everything, apologized, and swore that she had never done anything since. I have not handled it well. We both have been going to IC and MC, and I have uncovered a lot of things about myself and her. My emotions have finally settled, and it's getting easier to understand my emotions and actions over the last 20 plus years. I'm coming to the realization that I never felt loved, respected, or encouraged. I'm sure these feelings have leaked out in a way that I treated her over the past 20 plus years since the initial betrayal. But since finding out about the affair 14 years ago, I just don't feel the same about her. I care about her. I just find that I'm not chasing her, teasing, and flirting like I used to. I honestly had a very high intimacy drive, but I haven't cared to have any intimacy with her specifically. I don't want to divorce. She's still my best friend. She's fun, smart, attractive, among many other good qualities. I'm not interested in other women, which is a positive, but I'm just wondering if anyone has had similar experience. In 29 years of marriage, I've never felt like this about her, and honestly, it worries me. And there is an edit here. The college friend she slept with is one of her friends, not mine. Additionally, she had been faithful for the past 14 years. I have seen zero signs of anything. We have an open phone policy. She doesn't go out without me, etc. She's very remorseful and has done all the hard work, including counseling, reading books, and checking in on me. For the most part, we've had a good marriage, but the past 14 years, while I buried my head in the sand, the marriage has been lacking in intimacy for the most part, except for the last 3 years or so. She claims she didn't feel emotionally safe with me beforehand, as I was very defensive and rarely acknowledged her emotions. So one of the first comments says, solid friends but not solid wife, like 3 strikes and you're out at the least. And another comment says, so you're going to allow her to keep cheating on you without any consequences? You know things will never change. And honestly, I really can't say what the best advice here is. When you are in a long-term relationship like that, it's really hard to let it go, especially if there's like kids involved and all that kind of stuff. And you know, when you fell in love with this person, you fell in love with who they were 14 years ago, or however, you said 29 years you guys were married, so 29 years ago. She is not the same person, or maybe this is just who she was all along and she's just showing her real colors. But at this point, I feel like when it comes to marriage, you should always try to save your marriage because you guys committed to each other and you had vows for each other. But the only thing that I could see being okay to file for divorce would be if you're being abused, or if they cheated on you because they broke their vows. Anytime you break a vow in a marriage, you're breaking the contract that you guys had set between the both of you. So when you break that contract, you're now nullified, which means the contract is nullified, which means you guys are no longer in a sacred pact of marriage. And I think at this point, you have to really ask yourself, is this what you want the rest of your life to look like, or are you going to continue wasting time? You don't have to be interested in other women in order to get a divorce from a woman who is ruining your life. And usually I do take the woman's side, but this time I'm definitely taking the man's side, because it doesn't matter what gender it is on each side. What is happening is completely disgusting. I mean, she's hit up 2 of your friends to sleep with them, and they've both turned her down and told you immediately, which thank goodness you have really good friends. But how long would she have slept with your friend had they had not told you? And how many more friends would she have slept with had they not told you that she was trying? So she went to somebody who she knew wasn't going to say anything to you and was going to do what she wanted. She wanted to cheat. I mean, she cheated. She was trying 3 times and hit the freaking home run at the very end. Like, I think at this point, there's nothing left to salvage. Your wife seems like she needs more than just therapy. And I feel like it is time for you to move on for your own sanity and peace in your home. All right, we are moving on to our last story. Am I the asshole for filing for divorce after my wife suggested we open our marriage? I answered my wife's phone and a man's voice asked when she wanted to meet for lunch. But the contact was saved as a female coworker's name, so I filed for divorce and not everyone said I overreacted. My wife left her phone on the kitchen counter yesterday morning while she was in the shower. It started ringing and the caller ID said it was from her coworker from the office. The one she mentioned a few times, so I figured it might be work related and I answered. A man's voice answered and said, "Hey, are we still on for lunch today or do you want to push for tomorrow?" I said, "Who is this?" and he paused. Asked if this was my wife's phone and I said, "Yes, I'm her husband." A long silence, then he said, "Sorry, wrong number," and hung up. I stood there staring at the phone. The contact name was definitely her coworker's name, a woman's name, but that was a man's voice asking about lunch plans. When my wife got out of the shower, I asked her about it and she went pale. Asked what I said to him and I told her I asked who he was and he hung up. She got defensive immediately and said it was just a friend from work and I had no business answering her phone. I said the contact was saved under a woman's name. Why would she do that unless she was hiding something? She said I was being paranoid and that yes, she changed the contact name because she knew I would get weird about her having a lunch with a male coworker. She said it was incident and I was making it into something that it wasn't. I asked how long she'd been meeting him for lunch and she said a few months, maybe since June. Always during work hours, nothing inappropriate. I asked why she never mentioned him and she said because of this exact reaction. That I get jealous and she didn't want to deal with it. I told her that this wasn't jealousy, it was about her lying and hiding a relationship with another man, saving his number under a fake name so I wouldn't know. She started crying and said she wasn't cheating, and that it was just a friend and they talked about work and stuff and that I was blowing it way out of proportion. I asked to see her phone, but she refused. Said I didn't have the right to go through her private messages, and that's when I knew. I told her if there was nothing to hide, then she should have no problem showing me, and she said it was just the principle, that they deserved privacy and I was being controlling. We fought for an hour and she kept insisting nothing physical happened. I kept asking why she felt the need to lie if it was so innocent. Eventually she said, "Fine, maybe we should consider opening up the marriage." That clearly I don't trust her and maybe we both need more freedom. I asked if she was serious and she said she'd been thinking about it for a while and that monogamy feels restrictive and maybe we'd both be happier if we could see other people. I said absolutely not. Asked if she was already sleeping with him and she said no, but she thought about it. That she has feelings for him but hasn't acted on them because of the marriage. I told her to get out. She said I was overreacting, that at least she was being honest and that she could have just cheated, but instead she is trying to have an adult conversation about our relationship. I said the adult conversation should have happened before she started having secret lunches with another man and developing feelings for him. That this was an emotional cheating and at minimum I wasn't going to sit here and discuss opening our marriage so that she could F her coworkers guilt-free. She called me controlling and insecure, said that this is why she never told me in the first place. I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother, calling a lawyer the next morning, filed for divorce 3 days ago. Now her family is blowing up my phone and her mom says that I'm throwing away 7 years of marriage over nothing. Her sister says that my wife never actually cheated and I'm being dramatic. Some of our friends are saying that I should have at least tried counseling first. My wife has been texting me saying I made a mistake that bringing up the open marriage thing and that she was just scared and trying to deflect. That nothing happened with the guy and that she'll cut contact completely if I come home. But I don't believe her. The fake contact name, the secret lunches, the immediately jump to suggesting an opening marriage when confronted. It all feels like she was already cheating or planning to and got caught before she could. My brother says I did the right thing, but my parents think I'm being too hasty. That marriages go through rough patches and I should at least hear her out. I don't know, maybe I should have pushed harder to see her phone and suggested counseling before going straight to divorce, but the trust is gone. Did I give up too easily? Now, all of the comments that are on this post are deleted, so I'm just going to give my 2 cents on this, and you don't have to agree with me, but I feel like, in general, if I was in this situation, this is how I would feel and this is how I would handle it. Now, first, I would say I have no issues with, like, open marriages or even, like, people... I forget what they call, like, a throuple, where they have, like, 3 people in the relationship, or, like, 3 or 4 people. I feel like if both parties are 100% compliable, that they should do what they are feeling most comfortable with. No issue, no judgments on that. However, when you are with somebody who believes in monogamy and you don't, there's an issue. And you cannot force them into seeing your point of view because that is not fair to them on their relationship values because you guys are not seeing the same thing. Now, personally, if I were her, and not that I would do this, but if I was in this situation and I caught her cheating, right? The first thing, obviously, you do, let me check the messages. Let me check your phone. Let me see what's on the phone. Because if you are not lying, then you have nothing to hide. But she immediately got defensive. She didn't want to show the messages because she knew that, yes, she was emotionally cheating. And if not, then she was already cheating. But obviously, we haven't seen the messages, so we don't know how far it went specifically. But at this point, again, you guys are married. Like I said, breaking your vows is kind of one of those things that's like marriage is off the grid. Like, you don't break your vows. You never cheat. Now, emotionally cheating is still as bad as physical cheating because you still have the intent of cheating, which I think is a lot worse because you drag it on for so long that you start, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's really difficult, but I feel like, number one, before maybe just jumping and being like, hey, let's get a divorce, maybe you could try counseling and see how far these messages went, and if it's something that you would feel comfortable reconciling, then maybe. But maybe it's something else that you guys are lacking in your relationship, that she felt the need that she had to look other places. But again, she should have just came to you and had an adult conversation the first time, because having the adult conversation now after she was already caught doesn't really count as adult conversation. I mean, I'm just being honest. She should have brought it to you before if you guys couldn't figure it out before. There's really no excuse here. I don't think that you were too hasty. I don't think your parents understand that you're going through a betrayal, and when you're kind of somebody that's like around people who think that you should just stick it out because you're in a marriage, it doesn't really mix well for us, because we're the kind of people that's like, no, you messed up and it's time for me to go. But I think maybe just stay at your parents for a little while, figure out what you guys have going on, and try to work it out, or see if you can work it out. But I don't think that this relationship is salvageable, okay? And I can't even talk. I am so sorry. But I don't think it's salvageable. But what do you guys think in the comments? Because there is no comments on this. They're all deleted. So this is just me giving my 2 cents about, like, maybe what we could happen. But we have no idea. And we're also going to make sure we check if there is any updates on that in the future as well. And also, you guys, before I end this video, because that was our last story, we are getting near the end, and I wanted to say thank you guys so much for all of the support that you give this channel, for all the support you give me on my socials. I couldn't do any of this without you, and I feel so incredibly thankful and incredibly blessed. I also wanted to say that I did start streaming, and we are only like 98% away from being included in being added to the affiliate program on Twitch, which is amazing. It's been a whole 1 month of streaming so far, and I have had so much fun, and it's honestly, I love it, and I hope in the future we can build a little community there too. We do have a Discord. For some reason, sometimes the links aren't really working. So if you want to join the Discord, you can DM me on Instagram, on the Late Night Yap podcast Instagram, and I will send you the link personally so that you can, get invited until we can kind of come up with a better solution on how to add people. But right now, that's kind of my solution. I'm also going to do a little giveaway on my stream after we get into the affiliate program. So if you want to stay tuned, you can follow me on Twitch at LexiDuh, which is the same username as all of my personal socials, which I do post on as well. And if you could, just give me a like and follow down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!